If you've got an application up on Elastic Beanstalk in the single instance or single server configuration, you might want to add encryption to that website. It's a good idea, just generally a good idea. Well, how are you going to do that? How do we do that when we don't have access to Amazon's certificate manager through the load balancer to very easily add a certificate? I'm going to show you in this video how to use Let's Encrypt, a free certificate authority, to get a certificate onto your server. And maybe you've done Let's Encrypt before using certbot, logging into a server and doing things like that. It's a little bit different in an Elastic Beanstalk environment, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. The first reason is because Elastic Beanstalk uses Nginx as a reverse proxy. What does that mean? That means that Nginx, the web server, is running on your server, on the instances that are created in Elastic Beanstalk. And Nginx is the thing that is listening on port 80, and if you're doing HTTPS, on port 443, which means that all traffic that's coming to your server through HTTP over port 80 or port 443 is going to and through Nginx. There's a lot of reasons to do this. The main reason is that Nginx is just really, really good at responding to HTTP requests, and so it's going to do that really well. And it can forward those requests on to other applications on the back end. For example, in our case here, we're running a Node.js application. That application is running on the port that is specified in the configuration of the server in that environment variable port. So when that application is running, it's listening for requests that come from the machine, from within the machine. Basically, it's listening for requests from that reverse proxy. The full extent of the reasons why there's a reverse proxy and not just using Node.js on its own is beyond the scope of this video. Just know that that is how it's set up, and this is typically how enterprise-grade applications are set up. So with Nginx there, as our reverse proxy, as the thing that is receiving those HTTP requests, one great benefit is that we can add a certificate with Let's Encrypt relatively easily. And now let's talk about how to do that. The way that we set up certificates in Elastic Beanstalk is a little bit different than the way you do it with a normal server. Normally with a server, you would log into the server through SSH maybe and install certbot and get everything running and you're good to go and change your configuration for the server and you're set. The reason we have to do things differently in Elastic Beanstalk is because of the way Elastic Beanstalk handles upgrades. Every time you provide a new version of your code, Elastic Beanstalk creates a new server. Every time there's an update to the server software, maybe there's an update to Node.js or an update to some of your dependencies, Elastic Beanstalk creates a new server. So what we need to do, instead of logging in and changing things manually on a server, we need to give Elastic Beanstalk instructions for how to do that for us every time it creates a new server. So that every time it creates a new server, it can request and install a new certificate. So how are we going to do that? We do that by creating 3 new files. And I've got those files here. I'll also link them in the video description, and you can click and find those files. But it's important that those files go in specific locations inside of your project directory. The first one of those files I have called 00 install certbot.config. The important thing here, the number at the beginning specifies the order in which these are run, and .config tells Elastic Beanstalk that this is a .config file. And this is inside of the .ebextensions directory. .ebextensions is a hidden directory because it starts with that dot, and ebextensions is Elastic Beanstalk extensions. It's where you put configuration things. So all we have in this file is a set of instructions to install certbot, which is Let's Encrypt's software to automatically create new certificates, request and install new certificates. And this is a series of instructions. The container commands are a series of instructions to run things on the server. So this is every time you create a new server, tells Elastic Beanstalk, every time you create a new server, install this software. So this is installing the software, creating the virtual environment, updating pip, installing certbot, and then creating the link to certbot inside of the programs directory, basically. So this is the process of installing certbot, and it's going to happen every time you create a new server. Elastic Beanstalk runs this code every time as a part of the setup process. Next, we need to create another one. This one is called 10 open https port.config. 10 means run it after 00 because these are run in numerical order. And .config tells it, it's a configuration file. And in here we specify, you could take a look at the file, maybe take a guess at what this is doing. To port 443, IP protocol, TCP, IP address. This is setting up the security group rule to allow port 443 onto our server. Because without it, we can't get to port 443, and we can install the certificate all we want, but we wouldn't be able to get through to it. And then finally, the last thing that we create, the last new file that we create, is the script to actually get the certificate. So in the ebextensions one, we installed certbot, set ourselves up, and got ready. And in get certificate, we have our instructions to get our certificate. And this is a script that's run. This is inside the .platform/hooks/postdeploy directory. So this is actually 3 directories with the postdeploy directory inside of the hooks directory inside of the .platform directory. And this is a script that is run when, post-deploy, after deployment. After the application is deployed, after the code is deployed, then we will run this get certificate shell script. And both lines of this are important. This runs certbot with some options. So I'm going to put my domain in here, professorS.useast1.elasticbeanstalk.com. And if you have a custom domain that you've pointed, maybe with a CNAME record or with an A record to the IP address, you can use that custom domain there instead. And then you need to put your email address, and I'll just put my email address right here. And once you've got that, you are ready to deploy. Almost. Remember, we've got one more thing we need to do, which is to add this stuff to our Git repository. And you'll notice in mine, there's a .ds store. That's a Mac thing. It adds this automatically. In fact, what I'm going to do real quick is just add .ds store. DS store to my gitignore file because I don't want that in my Git repository. So we're going to refresh this page. Now that's gone. We'll add our new gitignore and add our new files. Create certificate on deploy. And we're going to commit that. Now we need to zip up these files. And our project has started to get a little bit complicated. We've added, we've got our code. We've got this node modules folder that we don't want to include. We've got these files that are inside of hidden directories. And if I open up my directory in Finder, those hidden directories aren't there. And we've got these zip files that I don't want to include. And there's a way with Command-Shift period that you can tell your Finder on a Mac to show the hidden files. If you're on Windows, those directories, the .ebextensions and .platform just show up for you because Windows doesn't hide directories beginning with a dot automatically, but Macs do, Linux does. And so here we've got a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of things in a lot of folders. And if we show this, maybe now, what do we include? What do we not include? How do I know? Do I need the .git folder in there? I don't, but maybe, if you're not sure, and the views and the .platform, the .gitignore, there's a lot of stuff and things, and it's making it more complicated to remember what we want to include in our zip file that we're uploading to Elastic Beanstalk. So what I'm going to do is actually save myself a little bit of time and effort. So I'm going to show you a shortcut for how to use Git to create the zip file that we want. So we've added stuff to our gitignore file to specify certain types of files like zip files, things in node modules that we don't want included in our Git directory. And we can use Git itself to create the zip files that we want to include. So if you type on my computer, it's Control backtick. The little key that's above the left tab. Control plus backtick opens a terminal inside of Visual Studio Code that is already inside the directory for my application. Now I can use this terminal and use the git archive command to create a zip file that contains all of the stuff that I need for my application. So with git archive, I just type here head. And what head is referring to is the commit version. And in this case, it's saying put the latest stuff that I have committed, all the stuff that I've committed into my repository. So make sure that you commit your changes before you type this command. And now you could just type -o for output. And then we're going to make where are we at? V4, I think. Let's double check. We're at V3 right now. So we are at v4.zip. And if I type this out, this is going to take all the files that we have in our Git repository, which means it excludes the zip files that are there. It excludes the node modules. And we type this, and now I can go back to my Finder directory and see that v4.zip is there. So now we just need to take that file and deploy it on AWS, and we should be ready to go. So let's do that. We'll pop on over to AWS, upload and deploy once again, and we'll choose our file, v4.zip, open, give it the label. I'm going to call it v4. I'm not sure why Beanstalk always chooses different names than the one I created, but we're going to call it v4.nothing. We're going to call it v4 and upload it, and we'll see it goes through this process of updating the environment, and when we come back, we will have a working certificate on our server. So as it goes through this deployment, it's following the instructions that we gave it to create the certificate and install the certificate. And now we see that the environment update has successfully completed. We can click on this domain, and it now takes us beautifully to an HTTPS page that is encrypted just the way that we want it. All the same data is there, and we have a functioning certificate. So that's how you set it up when you've got a single instance environment and you need to use Let's Encrypt. This is the way to do it.